Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Today, we have a new set of crazy stories about crazy people for you to enjoy. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Our first story. Coworker calls out my partner's work on a job. I do the same. So I install automated systems for customers. And at this particular job I did a few months ago with a new worker, I'll call him Trey, so he didn't really know much, so I was teaching him. He made a few mistakes. Instead of using zip ties and wire nuts, he wrapped up the wires with electrical tape, which to me is not a big deal since nobody can really see it unless you work for our company servicing the equipment. Last week, on a group chat, another coworker, I'll call him Deuce, took pictures of Trey's work that he'd done using the electrical tape and wrote a long text saying that we shouldn't be using electrical tape on job sites even though we're provided with electrical tape by our company. Trey had told Deuce that he was new at the time and used the tape, but Deuce put the blame on me instead because I was the senior guy, and I was like, okay, if you're going to criticize our work, make sure that your work is immaculate. I got sent to a site that Deuce had worked on, and the customer had all kinds of complaints because Deuce had cut corners, and I took tons of pictures. It took me about 6 hours to fix the issues, and some issues I couldn't even fix because I didn't have the right parts. When I was done, I wrote a long text message imitating Deuce's message earlier and uploaded all the pictures that I'd taken and basically called him out, saying the customer wasn't happy. My manager started the group chat, so he saw everything. My other coworkers, not Trey or Deuce in the group, were laughing because I almost imitated Deuce's text messages word for word, and he didn't respond at all. And at the end of the message, I wrote that if you're going to criticize someone else's work, make sure your work is immaculate. About a half hour later, my manager called me laughing, saying that Deuce, who'd written the original text, was very upset and that I needed to stop being petty, even though it was funny. And I told him I didn't like that he threw the new guy under the bus, and I made sure I'd throw him under an 18-wheeler, and the group chat's been a lot calmer now since then. And our next story. Discrimination gets you nowhere, except bankruptcy. So within the last year or so, I made a bunch of life-altering decisions. One of those was moving to another side of the country after being offered a job at a company in the state I wanted to live in. My boss, we'll call him Brandon, had known me for a while. I work in an industry where most people know each other and the key players, and it offered me a job knowing my criteria and many other things. I was well qualified for the job he'd hired me for. So I move across the country and begin working. This company has a main office and a supplying warehouse. The supplying warehouse was where I worked. No manufacturing done here, just supporting parts for the main office. Within a month, the owner of the company, Viet, shows up at the office looking for my boss. The main company is about 8 or 9 hours away, so this was a long drive, and the owner never came down to the warehouse. Not since it opened originally 7 years ago. My boss isn't there. He usually isn't and doesn't need to be because I can handle it and he lives up the road if I need him. Viet immediately begins yelling at me. He never once speaks to me. He yells at me the whole time he's communicating with me, berating me on the fact I need to take inventory because fiscal year is about to be up and that I need to maintain the warehouse, and had I ever done this before? He gave me the third degree and treated me like an idiot. Meanwhile, I texted Brandon and he showed up, and Viet changed his tune completely. At that point, he didn't even speak to me at all. Didn't even make eye contact. The two of them chatted, and then Viet left. I thought the interaction was weird, and it's been a long time since I was questioned on whether I could run a warehouse. I used to manage a 100,000 square foot warehouse. This was literally just the size of a large garage. Over the next month, Viet would periodically call and yell at me about some things here and there, but overall things went smooth, and things were going all right. One day I texted Brandon and told him I was going home for about half an hour because I needed to handle some paperwork for my apartment. Then I get a call from Viet. He begins yelling at me. He tells me that he called the warehouse phone and someone answered and said I wasn't there. This isn't possibly true as no one worked at the warehouse except Brandon and me. He tells me I'm not allowed to leave the warehouse unless I get permission from him, because what if important calls come in and no one can get a hold of me? The phone has a connection for if it's an emergency and will forward to my cell phone, so that point was moot. I take care of what I'm doing at the apartment and get back to the office. Brandon shows up at the office and tells me he was planning on leaving in a few months and to give me the warehouse because he couldn't do it due to mental health stuff. In this conversation, I had told Brandon how Viet talks to me, and I was beginning to hate it because I was tired of being treated disrespectfully. We had a long talk, and I was unsure, but it all sounded like an awesome opportunity for me to advance. A couple weeks later, Viet calls me and begins yelling at me. Then he asked me how long I'd been at the office that day. I told him I'd been there since 8:30 a.m., starting time. He said I'd been terminated a week and a half ago, and Brandon should have told me this. I packed up my stuff and left the office. After calling Brandon and not getting a hold of him, I went next door and told the neighboring warehouse guys what had happened and asked if they knew anyone looking to hire someone. They said they had some work I could do part-time since it was crop season. I could do some work there for a bit. The next day, Brandon's at the office and asked me to come over. I did, and he explained Viet was in the wrong on this, and I could easily sue Viet if I didn't get my paycheck by the end of the day. Law here indicates you get your final paycheck within 24 hours of termination. Brandon told Viet that what he did was wrong and I could sue him if I wanted to. Viet told Brandon that he didn't want that woman to be a problem and to pay me whatever I want in cash, no paperwork, to be quiet. Hush money. He admitted he didn't want me there and didn't trust me to take over the company because I was a woman. That's why he never treated me with respect. That's why he questioned my abilities to handle this warehouse. After hearing this, Brandon was livid and has since left the company or is working on his severance. We don't talk about it much now. A few weeks after this all happened, I called my dad and told him what happened. My dad is one of those key players in the industry that I mentioned. I've been in this industry a long time due to having worked for the family business for nearly a decade. My dad was PO'd and said he was going to drive that company so far into the ground that they can't get out of it. It's been 3 months now. The company is very close to filing bankruptcy and/or shutting down. Viet thought he was losing money before, but now that one-day shipping from the main office is international shipping, they're no longer able to support the products as well as when I was running the warehouse. On top of that, my father's gone in and offered every single one of Viet's customers a free replacement unit. These are several $1,000s each unit from company, and he will support the parts and take care of them. So now my father's company not only has a larger customer market now, but he's completely driven out all of Viet's products and destroyed their customer base. This doesn't include the fact that my father's company was previously a large vendor for Viet's company. And our last story. Buy my program when you fire me? No? Okay. I was employed at a rather large factory, which is one of the largest plant-based companies in the world, recently bought by an investment firm not so long ago. Anyways, I developed a program which was used at the factory. It could tell whenever any machines were not running, even if it was due to a manual stop or anything else. My program knew the reason why the machine was idling. This program made it so much easier for the entire factory. Workers were happy because they didn't need to do any manual work and write down every time the machine stopped. Lead up to about a year ago. Factory appoints a new chief. All the old employees that were in a leader position were let go because it was time for new blood to come in. There was a lot of talk about selling off parts of the factory, including machines and so on. This included programs that I developed, including the program that identified whenever a machine stopped. I developed this program on my spare time, showed it to the old management, and they liked it enough that they wanted to use it on every station in the factory. Every machine was to use this program. All that had to be done was for the program to be maintained weekly. This was around 5 years ago or so. When the newly appointed factory chief wanted to let the old employees, me included, leave, it was not known that I was the person behind that program. Anyways, in my meeting with HR and the factory chief, I said that I was willing to sell them the program and teach someone how to maintain the program. The factory chief laughed in my face and said it was company property and that it was simply their program and not mine. I offered to show them the source code and everything, but it led up to the point where if I was to tamper with the program before my departure, they would sue me. I was officially let go, 2-month countdown began, and after 2 months, I was free. After a week or so, they noticed problems with the program. It would stop loading, stop registering stops, and it would mislabel stops. I knew that this was when the fun was about to begin. After a month, I was called into the office and was told that I had tampered with the program because it had suddenly stopped working. I told them no, that someone had to maintain it. I was ordered to teach someone how to do that job, and I told them, after you pay me for the program rights. They wouldn't budge, and I was told to return to work. When I had a week left, I strolled around the factory floor for a while and noticed that no stations were running my program anymore. I asked some operators why that was, and they told me that it just stopped working, and now we need to fill out forms every time the machine stops manually. I shrugged and told them to thank the factory chief. I left after that week, got a phone call about a month after I left when they begged me to sell them the rights and teach someone how to maintain it. I never sold them that program. Instead, I sold an improved version to another factory nearby where I'm now employed. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video, and I'll see you in the next one.